This is a story of how I learned not to meddle with things that I don't really understand. There are just some things in this world that have to be left alone. After all, curiosity killed the cat. If you want to learn this lesson along with me, click the like and subscribe buttons below. Last summer, I was lucky enough to join a dig in Cairo. I'm a freshman taking up archaeology, and only two of us in my class were chosen to join this amazing opportunity. Alex and I burned in the hot Middle Eastern sun. But it was a real hands-on experience in the field, and I was thrilled the whole time. We uncovered a huge dinosaur fossil near one of the entrances of an underground tunnel. It was mind-blowing. On the last day of the dig, I felt really sad though. Even if I had this amazing opportunity, I wasn't able to check out anything else in Egypt. So that night, I convinced Alex to explore the underground tunnel beside our dig site. There was something so mysterious about it. Thank goodness there weren't any guards posted at that time. When we entered the pitch-dark cave, I had no idea that it would lead to a series of tunnels. It was like a maze, and it was huge. It was very silent, stuffy, and gloomy inside. There were hieroglyphics all over the walls. It was amazing. Then we got lucky and found a sarcophagus standing by a crumbling wall. Whoever was digging here did a pretty good job. The structure was almost free. With the help of a flashlight and the tools in my backpack, Alex and I were able to see the opening lid on the sarcophagus. "I don't know about this," Alex suddenly said while grabbing my hand. "I don't think we should be poking around in here." "Don't be such a wimp," I told him. This was the only chance we could ever have to make an actual discovery. We were going to be the very first people who were going to see whatever was in the sarcophagus, since it was sealed hundreds of years ago. Instead of fear, I felt excitement and a burning curiosity. We scraped away the remaining dirt. The lid was finally loose. I pulled it open. There was a huge mummified body standing inside. The hairs on my arms stood up. It looked so creepy. But then I spied something near its feet. It looked like a stone tablet. "What the hell are you doing?" Alex cried when I bent over to pull it out. But before I could answer, a heavy weight suddenly fell on top of me, smothering me with wrappings and dust. The body fell over, and I was trapped under it. Along with the mummy, tons of insects and debris from the sarcophagus covered me like a mound of sand. I screamed in terror. Somehow, Alex managed to pull me out. Then we heard a wailing coming from inside the cave. That sound chilled me to the bone. I looked down and saw the finger of the mummy twitch. "It's coming alive!" I screamed. I struggled to get up, and we ran out of the cave as fast as we could. We jumped into the car, breathing fast. I could see that Alex was completely freaked out by now. "Why the hell did you do that?" he screamed at me. "Why did you try to take out that tablet?" Then I looked down on my arms. In my fear, I totally forgot about the tablet, but there it was, clutched tightly in my hand. "Jesse, we have to put it back," Alex cried again. "We disturbed something in there. It might come looking for that tablet." But there was no way in hell I was going back inside that cave. Besides, I already noticed a lot of strange carvings on the tablet. I wanted to inspect it further, and I could only do that back in the hotel. Alex had no choice. He drove us back to the hotel, and I went directly to my room to inspect my discovery. I traced my fingers along the chiseled hieroglyphics. However, I had no idea how to translate it. So instead of packing or even taking a shower, I searched online. There's something called the Rosetta Stone that helped archaeologists long ago. I knew it was going to take me a long time to figure out what was written here. I worked on it the whole night, but I was only able to work out the first line. In English, it translated as, "To those who disturb my sleep, be warned." I felt a tingle up my spine. This was so freaky, but so exciting. Then I heard a loud knock on my door. For a moment, I thought it was going to be the mummy, but it was only Alex. "We're late! We're going to miss our flight! Hurry up!" he cried. He was shocked to see that I was working on that tablet. I haven't even packed. So Alex started to throw all my stuff in my suitcases. I didn't have time for breakfast or even a shower. I just wrapped that tablet in an old shirt and stuffed it in my backpack. "What are you doing?" he cried. "That's an artifact! We have to give it back." But I shook my head. Besides, I needed a souvenir from Cairo. This was the perfect one. On our way to the airport, Alex kept checking the time and saying that we were late. But I couldn't keep my mind off the hieroglyphics. I was on my phone, still searching for the meaning of the next lines. Finally, I found the translation. The symbols meant, "I will prevent your retreat." Oh my God! I felt a shiver even though it was another sweltering hot day. But I pulled myself together. It was just a coincidence that we were running late for our flight. On the plane, Alex finally had the time to ask me what I found out. "It's a warning," he whispered with a frightened look. "Something terrible is happening to us. There might be a curse." "Don't be silly," I replied. "There are no such things as curses." The moment I said that, the plane suddenly went into turbulence. It was the most horrifying flight I had ever had. When I finally got back to the college, I headed straight to my dorm room. It felt good to finally take a shower. I was filthy, but when I dried myself off, I noticed that my body was covered with red rashes and I started to itch everywhere. My phone beeped. It was a message from Alex. "Jesse, something weird is happening to my skin." His text went, "It could be the curse." Again, I thought Alex was being ridiculous. I just drank some allergy medicine and the itching stopped. I figured that it would take a while for my rashes to disappear, but I wasn't going to worry about it anymore. Instead, I was more interested in translating the rest of the hieroglyphics. I told Alex to drink some medicine and to meet me in the library. We spent days and days researching. Alex was getting more and more freaked out. And honestly, after everything that we discovered, I was starting to freak out too. Because the next lines we found told us about facial disfigurement, skin lesions, and troubled sleep. This was already happening now. Alex and I hadn't slept in days because of fear. We had dark circles under our eyes. I was trembling by the time we got to the next line. It read, "Death will come to the people closest to you." Then Alex's phone buzzed. It was his mother. She told him that his grandmother had just passed away. He looked at me angrily. "This is because of you! Why did you have to drag me into that cave? Why did we have to worry that mummy? Now we're cursed!" I was scared, but I was still trying to reason it out. I asked him if his grandmother died unexpectedly, but he said that his grandmother was already 90 years old. "She was old," I replied. "That wasn't an unexpected death." Alex looked at me like I was crazy. "Stop rationalizing and show some respect. If you didn't insist on poking around inside that cave, we wouldn't be having this problem," Alex hissed at me. He was starting to look crazy too. "This is all your fault!" He stormed out of the library, leaving me to translate the remaining text all by myself. And sure enough, the next line read, "You will go mad and insane." My eyes grew big with fear. Alex was right. We were cursed. Everything in the tablet was happening to us. I spent another sleepless night in terror. There were still so many symbols to translate, and they all probably meant that I was about to experience the most terrifying things. I became too scared to leave my room, but I had to find out what the complete text meant. Maybe there was going to be a counter curse somewhere there. I called Alex and told him that we were in this together. We had to go back to the library to get all the research books. We could camp out in my room to figure things out. Thankfully, he agreed. I got to the library without anything happening to me, but I was so scared by then. I couldn't stop thinking about the curse. We walked back to my dorm room together, keeping close together with our eyes on the ground when a shout came out of nowhere. "Watch out!" It was a group of cyclists headed our way. Alex and I realized too late that we were already crossing the street. The bikes crashed into us, and we got tangled in a heap of metal and rubber. "Hey!" One cyclist shouted at us. "Don't you look where you're going? Don't you know that you have to look both ways when you cross the street?" We jumped up and ran away from the scene. By this time, Alex and I were already bruised and bloody. It was already past sunset. The lawn was beginning to darken. All of a sudden, the noises around us became magnified. There were bats flying in the air. In the half-light, we saw them as monstrous beasts, about to swoop down to pluck out our eyes. The sound of crickets became the sound of screaming zombie babies, ready to torture us if they caught us. A black cat streaked across our path and it hissed, transforming it to a hideous fiend that wanted to devour our bloody bodies. Alex and I lost whatever self-control we had left. We screamed and ran, looking over our shoulders. We were so scared that the mummy would appear from nowhere and demand that we give back the tablet we found in its tomb. That's when I suddenly bumped into something solid. It gave a grunt of pain. I screamed in shock. "Calm down, girl," a man said. "What are you so scared about?" "The mummy is after us!" I cried. "It's coming!" Suddenly, the man laughed. "Is this some sort of prank?" he asked. I shook my head in confusion. Even in the dark, I managed to recognize him. It was Professor Roberts. He was with us on the dig. "Mummies can't move, much less run after you," he said. Then Alex butted in. "But their curses are real!" The professor laughed again. "I don't think so. I think you kids just miss Cairo. Go to your dorms now. There's a storm coming." True enough, it started to rain. Lightning flashed in the sky, and thunder was so loud that I had to cover my ears. Professor Roberts' reassurances didn't help one bit. Alex and I just wanted to go back to my dorm room. It was the only safe place we could think of. So that's how we lived for the next few months. We rarely even went to class anymore. We stayed in my room, too scared to step out of the door, just in case the mummy was waiting outside. We had everything delivered to our doorstep, but even the delivery guys started to have these menacing looks. We stopped talking to anybody but each other, but we fed each other's fears. Little by little, Alex and I had turned from normal college kids to soulless cowards. What made matters worse was that we still haven't figured out the last line in the stone tablet. The last text was indecipherable. By the 6th month, I was a total wreck. My rash didn't disappear. I had terrible headaches that lasted days. I jumped at small noises. I barely slept. I was always on the edge of my seat, waiting for death to come and claim me. This curse was coming true. I was trapped in the middle of a nervous breakdown, and there was still an undiscovered curse that we didn't understand yet. We had translated over 400 hieroglyphics, but we regretted every moment of it. I didn't want to find out what the last line meant. I was so scared that it was going to say that my death was coming by torture, or by other horrible ways. But Alex kept begging me to continue. He said that we had to finish it. Maybe the last line will tell us a counter curse to stop all this. He pleaded with me. Please, Jesse, please! So for a week, we tried one more push. Alex braved the outside world and borrowed more books from the library. We managed to figure out most of the symbols except the last one. The last line read, "After all the misfortunes that you deserve, I must tell you that is..." The last symbol eluded me. I couldn't find the text anywhere. There was only one person who could help us now. We finally decided to go outside so we could go and visit Professor Roberts. At first, he was shocked by how we looked. He barely recognized us, but we begged for his help with this one text. He said, "I don't recognize this at all, but give me a few days." We practically held our breath the whole time we were waiting. Images of horrific deaths filled my head. Was it going to be some slow and painful disease? Was it by drowning or suffocation? Was I going to be struck by lightning? Or would I be buried under a building after an earthquake? I don't think I can suffer anymore. I was so scared and so sorry that I meddled in something I had no business in. Now my life was falling to pieces. Alex and I were going to die soon, but we didn't know when or how. The waiting and the guessing made it 100 times worse. I prayed to the gods in Egypt, apologizing from the depths of my soul. "I'm so sorry that we opened your sarcophagus," I cried. "I'm so sorry that we disturbed your eternal rest. Please, please lift this curse from us. I promise never to do anything like this again." Alex and I were so scared to sleep that we ended up huddled in a corner of my room, listening to every little sound. Then we jumped and screamed at a noise we heard. It took a while for us to realize that it was the telephone ringing. "Sorry to call you so late," Professor Roberts said on the other line, "but I wanted to tell you that I finally translated the word. This particular symbol is actually a new discovery." "What does it mean?" I cried to him. "Please tell us what it means." "Hey," the professor replied, "why are you freaking out so much? Lighten up, Jesse. The word means joke. Apparently, the Egyptians had a sense of humor too." I slumped down on the floor, unable to grasp his meaning. "This was all a joke?" he went on. "That symbol technically means joke. All the text that came before is false and made up." I passed the phone to Alex. I couldn't even hold it anymore. I started to sob uncontrollably. I couldn't believe what was happening. Alex and I went through so many terrible things this past year. We thought we were cursed by that mummy, and now I found out that none of it was real. Along with my sobs, I started to laugh uncontrollably. I think my wits have reached their breaking point. Alex sat down in front of me. Instead of breaking down, his face was actually relieved. "We're free," he whispered. "There is no curse to begin with." I nodded, but I was still in the grips of my hysteria. I couldn't take it in just yet. I only had a few words to say to Alex. "I think I'm changing my major," I said. "I don't want to be an archaeologist anymore."